Hi everyone, my name is Arielle. Welcome back to my channel today. I'm with my friend Nika Meyers and I am so freaking excited to just have this sit down chat with her. It's actually really cool. We met almost exactly 2 years ago to the date. We were sitting on the floor together for like the preparation talk for a local ski mountaineering race we both felt completely underqualified for, and I'm just so glad she said hi and we started talking and we got connected and really have been connected ever since. And I felt like there was no more fitting environment to have this conversation than out on a little ski touring adventure. So we woke up early this morning and it just happens to be one of the most beautiful days ever. We're just sitting out here in nature and I'm just super excited to chat with her. If you don't know who Nika is, get ready to be excited because this girl is fucking amazing. And not only is she a Triple Crown thru-hiker, which means she's thru-hiked the AT, the Appalachian Trail, the CDT, the Continental Divide Trail, and the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail, she also holds a fastest known time on the Colorado Trail. So she's out there doing amazing things. And since this will be my first thru-hike, I thought it would be fun to just speak to someone who knows their stuff. And I know a lot of you watching are also either planning your own thru-hike this year or in future years. So I just thought this could be really valuable, fun conversation for all of us.
Yay.
You ready to jump in?
I am.
Okay, so we're just gonna like spitfire her with questions today. I asked on my Instagram what you guys wanted to know from Nika, and you guys had a lot of questions. So we're gonna try to squeeze in as much as we can in a reasonable amount of time, and I'm just so excited to soak up all your wisdom.
Oh gosh.
So this is actually one of my favorite questions for people as well, but a lot of people wanted to know, what is your trail name and how did you get it?
So my trail name's Early Bird, and that's what, a lot of people are familiar in the trail community recognizing me as. And I got it when actually after I hiked my first thru-hike in 2012 on the Vermont Long Trail. I was originally given the trail name Nuthatch because it's this little bird that, kind of flits around. It like runs down tree trunks backwards, and it's just kind of silly, and it makes these little chirping noises. And the friend I was hiking with thought that I identified with that creature, so I was Nuthatch. But at the end of the trail, Early Bird was a little bit more fitting because I consistently not only got up early, it's one of my favorite times of day, but I was very chipper. I was ready to go and very talkative, and so Early Bird was, a friend was like, "You are such an early bird." I was like, they were like, "That should be your trail name, Early Bird." And so it stuck. I liked it.
I love it. And it's actually her Instagram handle. I'll put it on the screen, but Early Bird Hikes. And I'll make sure I put, because I think there's like a dash or something in there. So you guys can follow along with her adventures. Okay, so of course, everyone wants to know, what trails have you done?
Oh, yes.
And maybe the years and any other like interesting like tidbits about each of the ones.
Totally. So actually, I was homeschooled until 7th grade, and I created a trail that now, as I look back, it might have been my first long distance trail in our backyard. And it had a little like shelter because we were pretty close to the AT, so shelters out east are pretty common. And it had this that my sister and I had built, and it had this like swimming area, and I can't even remember what we called it, but it was this trail that we would keep going back to. So I like to say that was like technically my first thru-hike was in my backyard, but my first national scenic trail or trail that has a organization that maintains it and has a name and trail signs was the Vermont Long Trail in 2012. I was working for the Green Mountain Club that maintains that trail, as well as the Appalachian Trail in Vermont and a lot of the side trails. And I was working as their education and outreach specialist. And I had spent a year kind of talking about the importance of getting out on the trail and experiencing the Vermont mountains in different ways, and however you have people's bodies or minds wanted to experience those special places. But I realized I knew nothing about the thru-hiking community or how to backpack. But I was still trying to tell people like how to backpack through resources and conversations with other friends who'd done it before. So I thought it was probably pretty good, some job training to get out at least and spend a little time on the trail that I was really advocating for. So I got some time off from my boss, but it was the end of October, beginning of November, which is not the most ideal time to go hiking in Vermont. It's pretty cold and wet. But it was at the end of the field season, and I hiked it with my really good friend, and it was freezing cold. We had so much fun, and I felt like I had connected to the state that I had grown up in my entire life so much more deeply, and had no idea that we had like an alpine zone in northern Vermont. And just the consistency of waking up and putting all your stuff that you needed to get you through the day on your back was something I really enjoyed. And after that, I had a much better perspective of my job as well as the organization I was working for. But I also had this deep, deep curiosity that now there were other trails around this country that I could go and explore. And so I hiked the PCT in 2014. And that was incredible. I felt like I was hiking through a calendar every single day and met some people that are still some of my best friends I've ever met, and had a perspective of this country that I didn't know existed, and fell in love with the landscape of Washington, and applied for a job to work there the next summer in the North Cascades so I could learn more about that landscape. I was like, in one place you can have volcanoes and rainforest and desert and glaciers. I was very excited. And then in 2016, hiked the CDT, and that was another really big learning experience. I had to relearn how to thru-hike all over again. It felt like I had never backpacked a day in my life when I set out at the New Mexico border. It was, yes, I had hiked the PCT, but I had not hiked the CDT, and it's a whole nother beast. So there was a lot of learning through that experience too. And in 2018, I hiked the AT to finish the Triple Crown, and that felt really wonderful, like I was hiking home since I grew up in Vermont and kind of knew more of that New England landscape. And again, had to learn how to hike a lot more in the rain. And so there was always, it's always very humbling no matter how many miles you've hiked. There's always something to learn. And my curiosity for experiencing trails and the landscape in different ways, and my curiosity for what my human animal body can do inspired me to dream to hike across the state of Vermont fast and reconnect with some places that were filled with deep sadness or true joy, and just experiencing them in a different way. And so I went out to set the fastest known unsupported time on the Long Trail in 2019, and I achieved that goal. And
cheers to that.
It was really hard. It was a huge learning experience, and I felt at the end that I was this truly Vermont-born mountain fairy who had really, really connected with the community and place again in a different way. Even though it was much faster than my first thru-hike, it felt just as special.
Before you move on though, so just so people know, because I know you're going to get this question,
Yeah.
how long is that trail, and how quickly did you do it when you went for the fastest known time?
Oh yeah, so the Long Trail in Vermont goes from Canada to the Massachusetts border, or Massachusetts to Canada, depending on what direction you hike it in, and it's 272 miles, and I did it in 6.5 days.
Oh my gosh.
And the elevation gain is significant.
Yeah.
There's a lot of straight ups and straight down. You're consistently climbing about 1,000 feet per mile.
The putts.
So it's a lot. It's a lot of aggressiveness on the knees. The roots and rocks are real. But that. So that was definitely my first intro into kind of a fastest known time world. But for me, it was less about being the best and more about connecting. I've had a lot of really amazing mentors who've done fastest known times or have just been really connected to the long trail in general. It's where my love for hiking started, and I have friends who are in their 90s and friends who are under 10 who have really inspired me to dream that dream. So that was really fun. And it was a way I connected to the landscape, which then this year, to feel now that Colorado is my home, to feel more connected to this place, I wanted to hike the Colorado Trail, and due to timing and just not having all that much time this summer, I wanted to hike it fast, and that was a really amazing experience too. So this summer I set the Colorado Trail self-supported female fastest known time, and did that in 9.5 days, and that's about 500 miles.
Wow.
I feel
amazing.
like now I am becoming more able to call Colorado my home, because I feel like,
You've seen more of it than most people who've lived here their whole lives.
No, it's a special place. But I keep coming back to the trails because the trail community is such a incredible place, and it's just become kind of a part of me now.
So this one came up a lot. What do you or did you do for training / getting prepared physically for each of your hikes?
Awesome. Yeah, I think, when we ask ourselves this question, I think it's such a personal question, because all of our bodies are so unique and different, and will move through a landscape in different ways. And so what works well for me might not work well for others, but it's just an idea. And obviously I can speak from my own personal experience, but it's definitely not the only way to do things and to get ready for a trail. And honestly, each of my thru hikes, the training has looked really, really different. On the long trail, my first hike, I had been working, helping on trail crews and leading volunteer work crews in Vermont, and taking people on hikes and teaching them about various Vermont naturalizing topics, as well as kind of intro to day hiking type activities. But then, just ran and did some running and trail running and just exploring on my own. The biggest thing on the PCT for training, I was in Vermont all winter, and I was waiting tables, lunch and dinner. So I feel like I was on my feet all the time. So that was really great training, and I was carrying, heavy dishes and food, and kind of just, there were some days that, some of the waitresses who track their feet we'd walk like 10 miles in a day around the restaurant. So I think that was really great training, but it wasn't outside at all. And so, and I had never hiked in the desert. And so that was a really big learning experience, but my training for the PCT was not really physical. I did go to Georgia, where the friend who I hiked the PCT with, where they live, and we did a couple of hikes in the North Georgia mountains, and kind of did like a pack shakedown, and that was really helpful. But in terms of, I kind of was under the assumption that it's okay to show up and get in shape along the way, because I'd never done something that was 2,000 miles. It's so far. I was like still very questioning if I was physically capable of doing that. So I didn't train too much, but was definitely on my feet a lot, which was great. But then did get in shape along the way on the PCT a lot. And then on the CDT, again, I was having a pretty active lifestyle in Vermont, and kind of knew what to expect with the consistency of putting miles under your feet. And changed out my pack a little bit, and would carry weight around town, and just, I was working and wasn't able to, take consistent multi-day trips or anything off. Yeah. So just took every opportunity in the mornings, if I had time, to like pack a pack with, some extra weight, water bottles, like just heavy stuff, and walk around town or walk around some of the local park or whatnot. It wasn't necessarily, some big grand experiences. It was just like, what I have right in front of me. And really, the PCT showed me that my shoulders are going to hurt a lot, more than I was expecting. So I wanted to get some of that weight on my shoulders. I thought that was really important for the CDT, and that it did help. But again, just allowing for some low mileage days at the beginning to really kind of get your trail legs under you before pushing some of those bigger consistent miles. For the long trail, I was living out in Colorado at this point and did a lot of more intentional big days in the mountains, and a lot of that was some work related, as well as just I have now become maybe obsessed a little bit with like of just learning this place a lot, and especially with and so with that was some big days around here, and that really did help me prepare for the long trail. And then the Colorado Trail, honestly, I tried to stay just physically fit. I had a dream. I had no idea if it was going to happen, and then I had 4 days to finalize realized that work had opened up, and I luckily had all the gear I needed, and I just went and bought a bunch of food, cached some food along the trail, and at this point felt confident that maybe I could just go for it. And I've never been more nervous at the beginning of a trail than this year on the Colorado Trail, because I kept thinking, I was like, there's no way you're in physical shape. Like, you've never hiked 50 plus miles a day in your life. Like, who do you think you are to like think you can do this? And especially without any like super intentional training. It was just maintaining some sort of consistency, and then really having trust in myself. I don't know. There's something like bigger that also helps me now. Kind of be able to push a lot of those negative thoughts aside. That's like, no, you're not like physically fit. You're not able to do this. This is, and just kind of being like, you know what? If I don't accomplish this goal I set out, I'm doing the thing I love the most in a beautiful place, and I'm going to learn something. And there is the ultimate goal, but at this point in kind of, having thousands of miles under my feet, that the
over
outcome
10,000 at this point. Over 10,000, right?
The outcome is like, if you finish a trail, that's awesome. But the biggest challenge and the biggest step is like to make the decision to make that time. And so now I'm kind of like, if a thru hike ends ends at the terminus opposite to where I started, that's awesome. But if it doesn't, like, I'm still doing what I love, and that's special.
Okay, so this was also a biggie that came up a lot, is people wanted to know, how did you tackle food on the trail and like getting enough calories? And I know that's probably different from trail to trail, but maybe like just like a generalization as to like, what is your approach to food when you're thru hiking?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, from when I started eating on the PCT is not what I eat now.
Sure.
This is such a personal question, and honestly, it's going to change with whatever environment you're in. If you're in a really hot environment, I crave really salty food.
Yeah.
Salt and vinegar potato chips are my literal favorite trail food. Anything gummy, I am so down. Plus, if you carry like gummy dinosaurs, you can always like play with your food and make like fun little... Especially in Washington on the PCT. Oh my gosh, I was so obsessed with making little like dinosaur dioramas in the ferns. Anyhow, that's just me. Sometimes you get really weird out there. It's totally embrace the weirdness. I'm not someone who's going to count how many calories I have. I'm not a numbers person at all.
Sorry, my dog is like...
And so I think it's a huge... I'm still learning... even on this most recent Colorado Trail hike, the things I packed, like, my body did not want, and I'd always eaten along other thru hikes, and I think I'd never pushed my body that much, so I learned a lot, and I packed a lot of boxes at the beginning of the PCT, and I tried to be really, really healthy, and I realized that was not what my body needed. I also had packed, like, quinoa, and it takes so long to make. And at the end of the day, I want something so fast.
Yeah.
Because I'm so hungry. And so just kind of learning that it's okay for my body to eat not maybe the most nutritious food while I'm on trail, but when I get into a town, I was always having tons of fruit, tons of vegetables, tons of protein. On trail, like when I was carrying food, a lot of my food now looks pretty tan. It's like, and then of course gummies. Those are
Tan
colorful.
or like neon pink.
I love Reese's Pieces. I sometimes I take a lot of young kids out, and sometimes I'm like, I love to thru-hike because I get to eat candy. But the biggest suggestion with food I think I could possibly pass on is just being flexible and really listening to your body, because we don't know what our bodies are going to do when we're consistently hiking miles for months on end, and what our body might need, because it's really different than what we need when we have access to a grocery store, or when we're really not putting out that much physical activity every day. And so figuring out what works best for your body, and and I'm still learning.
So this was another really popular question, especially with the ladies. What was your trail hygiene routine?
Yes.
Or if you have a trail hygiene routine.
Well, if I'm going for a fastest known time, I have to say my hygiene becomes slightly more disgusting than a 4-month hike. And I carry wet wipes, unscented. And generally every day I would give myself a wet wipe bath in all the places that needed some love. If I didn't have wet wipes, I would wet a bandana and kind of wash myself down. And I think that that definitely helps a lot. 'Cause there's a lot of things that can go on, and you don't want to ruin your hike by something that, you can take care of. Recognizing, taking care of your body is really important, because it's going to help you get to the end. I carried 2 pairs of underwear, which seems like not a lot when you're thinking about, months on trail, but I cleaned them almost every day. Yeah. And so I would always have a clean pair of socks and a clean pair of underwear, because your feet are also a huge part of hygiene. Every break I air my feet out, even on FKTs. I air my feet out when I'm taking, if it's a 5-minute break, and if they're sandy and dirty, I wipe them free of sand, because I don't want to get blisters. I mean, I love getting weird hairy legs and just feeling kind of feral. I love being covered in dirt and kind of smelling like urine, because you just will, because everything just smells, and that's okay. And I love hiker stink. It's so nostalgic now, and every trail has its own kind of unique form of hiker stink depending on humidity. But but not being afraid, not being shameful, or to take care of what your body needs. And even for going to the bathroom for women now, I used to just shake dry, but now I carry a Kula cloth, which is one of my favorite pieces of gear, and it just helps to keep things sanitary. I hate it when people, put especially women down for taking care of their bodies in a way that you need to out in the backcountry. You don't have to become the grossest, dirtiest, uncleanly human in order to be taken seriously as a hiker. Take care of yourself. That's what's going to get you to the finish.
Yeah, and obviously I haven't done an ultra long trail yet, but I do have my wilderness first responder, and they talked a lot about that fact that small problems become big problems if you don't take care of them. So totally. Hygiene is it's a part of taking care of your small problems, so they don't become big problems.
Do what you need, and seek out the resources. If you think that it's it's something you've never dealt with before, someone's probably dealt with it too, and don't be afraid to reach out.
Okay, so gear is something that we could do a whole video on, and we've been chatting, and I think that there's going to be some more moments where you'll get to see Nika, especially as I'm planning my gear. She has graciously offered to help me with a gear shakedown, pack shakedown, and just kind of go through some logistical things. So we will dive more deeply into that in future videos, but just what's a quick overall strategy for planning for gear, if you were to just give your quick couple nuggets of advice?
Totally. Do some research, see what's out there. There's so much out there, but don't be overwhelmed by what's out there. Start with what you have. You don't need to go out and buy a ton of new stuff if you already have something, but recognize that if you're going to carry something for 2,000 miles plus, it's a lot. and weight can help make it more fun. But I started out with an enormous pack and a lot of borrowed gear because I didn't know how to make those decisions yet to like purchase, and I also didn't have like the financial capability to go out and buy like a thousands of dollar ultralight setup. And so I hiked with what I had and then learned what I could change. And I hiked the entire Triple Crown with like a sil nylon tent, which is not the lightest weight tent. It's just what I had, and a friend gave me one for the AT, and then we hiked, with one on the PCT and the CDT. And I did change out my backpack mid-trail because the first one I started with on the PCT got like too big, and then I changed out to one that I knew a friend had a lot of success with and like loved, and it was, they weren't the lightest weight on the market backpacks. They were just simple and affordable, and that was what I was going for. And then now I've learned what really works for me, and I have invested more in that lighter, super ultralight gear. So when people look at my like gear list now, it's like stupid light and like, but it's from years and miles of experience.
When it comes to finances, how do you plan the financial aspect of it and like taking time off? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, no, it's I questioned this too at the beginning. I was pretty convinced that I was only going to hike the John Muir Trail, only 200 miles with the PCT, because the thought of taking 4 months off. I was out of college. I was working as an AmeriCorps for 2 years, which for those of you who aren't familiar, you don't get paid much. It's a wonderful opportunity, but it's pretty much volunteer. And I, my loans from college were deferred through that AmeriCorps position. But once that ended, I was going to have to start paying my loans back. And I just intentionally was like, no, I'm going to make this work. And so I waited a lot of tables. I lived really simply. I didn't go out I stopped drinking. I stopped going out. I was like also working a lot in the woods, but I was like working at a restaurant. So it's like, I'm out, and it was just an intentional goal. And I knew that I wanted to save money for that. And so I made it through the PCT and got a job right after. But it was, I knew actually I went back to work for the trail organization, which again is like, I'm not making a ton of money, but I'm still living in a tent, so I don't have to pay rent. And so I lived in a tent till November that year, and then got an apartment that I shared with a friend. And then I found jobs that provide housing and are also outdoor. I did a lot of outdoor education. Again, not super high paying jobs, but just really intentional about my spending. And it's for me, it worked out. Like even along the PCT, my strategy for saving money was going into a town early in the morning, having a really big breakfast, because that's like my favorite meal of the day. It's also like the most bang for your buck.
Yeah,
which
totally.
Is beneficial anyways, because it's
calorie-wise for sure.
And then I would resupply, spend all day in town kind of charging stuff, and then like not really spend a night in the hotel. And that was a great way to save money. But then treat myself when I really, really needed it, or share, a space with other hikers. And then I've also had some really wonderful years moving back in with my parents, like the best, and working for my family, and just recognizing if I want to take time off, there are opportunities. And it's not all glamorous. I question a lot of my decisions a lot of my friends have more stable jobs and benefits, and but currently I'm okay with this now, and I'm intentionally spending money and making decisions that I feel are okay for me. And financially, I've never worked jobs that pay a lot of money, but I've been just intentional about where I spend my money.
All right, final question here. What is the biggest piece of overall advice you have for any aspiring thru hikers?
You know what? There is never going to be the perfect time, ever. And if you really have a dream, the only person who's going to make that time is you. And so go for the time that is given and make the best of it, because sometimes, you know, life happens to all of us, and it can get really crazy and confusing and hard. But if you really truly want to thru hike and take that time is going to be up to you to find. And it's okay to find that time. But I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is I can come up with all the reasons why I shouldn't take time to go thru hike, but no one is going to give you that time except yourself.
I just want to give like a huge shout out and thank you to Miss Nika over here. I'm just so grateful to have this human in my life, and just thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with all of us. I feel like I always glean so much from our conversations together, and I hope that you guys tuning in got something out of it as well. If there's any other further questions that you have for Nika, feel free to throw them down below in the comments, and I can try to check in with her here and there. And like I said, you will see her again in the future as I start to do some of my gear planning and making videos to bring you guys along for that. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. And yeah, it's crazy. The trail, my start date is like less than 2 months away, which is so exciting. So yeah, thank you so much again for tuning in. That's all we have for you this week, but there are so many amazing adventures and videos I have planned just to get ready for this hike and then to get out there on the trail. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. You're the best.
You're the best.
I'm so excited for your hike.
I can't wait. It's crazy.